started. Well done. 3, 2, 1. Good evening, everyone. My name's Alan Miller. I'm co-founder of the Together Association, and I am really pleased that we're here in a full house this evening in Bath. We did have a venue, as many of you will know, that actually ended up cancelling, but because of the courage and the conviction of Caroline and others in Bath, we managed to get another venue. Thank you very much for the Double Tree. One of the things we need today, because some people will try to smear and censor and shut us down. But together, we're committed to the idea that we have free speech and that we debate civilly, that we talk about the crucial issues of the day. And this is going to be really important because we've heard all sorts of things thrown about Together and about what's being done. But we can see in the room tonight, and just so you know at home, everyone, this is a full house at the Doubletree Hilton in Bath, which also were not prepared to have pressure put on them and wanted to have an event, which so it's really, really important that we recognise that. And well done. We're going to get straight into it, and then we're going to have a debate and discussion. We're going to talk about the provenance of low traffic neighbourhoods and 15-minute cities, of RPZs, it's all these acronyms, right? And you know, the new speed zones, 20 miles per hour, what it means for local residents and businesses and families, and what it means to have a democratic discussion about these things. We very much welcome your views. Thank you for joining us at home. And now I would like to hand over to Caroline. Big round of applause for Caroline.
Hello. Right. Well, welcome and thank you very much. I thought it was going to be a small town hall meeting with 30 people. So this is interesting and very, very positive. This campaign started a very long time ago. Can you hear? Yeah. This campaign started ages ago, 14 days ago to be exact. And the challenges have been interesting, and I've learned a lot about who lives in Bath, and the support has been absolutely fantastic. Just to say, we invited councillors Rigby and Warren, but they had prior commitments. And we have asked to suggest names of other councillors, but we haven't heard back from them on that one. We have, however, requested a date for when the councillors are free to meet us so that we can share everything that's happening here tonight. Still waiting back for dates. So yeah, fantastic support in such a short space of time. And because it's clear that livable neighbourhoods, while sounding idyllic, will change the way we all live drastically. Low traffic neighbourhoods, LTNs, are part of the plan by the council. They're divided up by using barriers across streets. The council have already approved 15 of these, and they're pushing for a total of 48. You can imagine how we will all be divided up. We've got 2 residents here tonight to talk about how it's affected them in Southlands and Weston. But that's not the only measure being activated. Add in residential parking zones, RPZs, the ring of steel, it all sounds terrifying, surrounding the historic centre that we all are suffering from, and modal filters. And Bath will become a very hard city to travel around and do business in. Have the consultations that the council have run been fair? Are they listening to our concerns? We want to hear your views after we hear from our speakers. We're delighted to be joined by Sharon Davies and residents of Southlands in Weston, Norma Barrett, Fatia Wilkins, and business owner on Moorland Road, David Pye. But first I'd like to welcome Alan Miller back, one of the founders of the Together Association, a great advocate for free speech and democracy. Although our campaign is run by a small group of Bath residents, we wouldn't have had the campaign experience or courage, because there's been some nastiness, to come together without their incredible support. Thank you.
Had a little technical moment. Thank you, Caroline. I'm going to start off. I'm going to say a few things after Sharon and the rest of the guys who will be very informed and share with you. I'm going to do a bit of a provenance of where all of this has come from. Low traffic neighbourhoods, 15 and 20 minute cities, ULEZ expansion, clean air zones, as they call them in the Midlands and elsewhere. And we can look at a bit of the history of it. It's interesting when people talk about outsiders, they never want to talk about the outsiders that have come up with these ideas and then implemented them. And I did have a question for Bath and North East Somerset Council, which is, are they not part of a national organisation? And when did it become, if you're in a trade union, do they say you can only do it in Bath, you're not allowed to be in the whole country? And when did it become the case, when people want to organise and talk about things and have a democratic discussion, that you had to be in one area? Or even if you're not in the area of the LTN and you're just outside, somehow you're an outsider. What we want to do is have a proper discussion and debate. We hope that, and we'll discuss this tonight, the councillors will come and join us for a civil debate and discussion. We won't be saying things about them that we don't think are true, and we certainly hope they don't do that about us, which already has happened a bit in the press. So I just want to start off this evening talking about some of the real concerns around low traffic neighbourhoods and other impositions that are made to families, residents, businesses. When did it become the case in Britain we had a conversation about having to negotiate our mobility? Or in Bath, when did it become the idea that somehow our movement, our free movement, had to be negotiated or had to be taxed? A bit like, as Josie Appleton said recently, in feudal times, when you leave one hamlet or another and you have to pay, you pay a toll to move around. And urban planning, which has a rich, important history about how we have transport and housing, beautiful parks and different areas that can be grand. All of that seems to be jettisoned now to something that's going to be about fining and taxing. That, let's not forget, central government is funding. They're funding to the tune of over 100 million. They've been supporting this, and also local authorities, which are strapped for cash sometimes, are then making more money from. And rather than talking about our services and how they can be improved, and a vision of Britain, almost like a festival of Britain, how we want to have dynamic wealth creation for everyone, really good housing, transport networks. Instead, there seems to be punitive measures, restrictive measures. They don't like the term lockdown, climate lockdown. They don't like that in Oxford. And yet it has to be seen that, does it not, ladies and gentlemen, that many of the trends of the technocrats that know best, be quiet, we're doing this for your own good, seem to be carrying on. And I think that the message needs to go back to technocrats, some of which have only been voted in by a few hundred people, about what's in this room right now. I don't know if Paul can turn the camera and show everyone how many people in there. It's very inspiring. What we're always told is, people don't care. The whole idea is that the stupid people, the really smart people will make all the decisions, the ones that know. And all these people are something else, right? They haven't quite understood, or they're a bit ignorant. There's obviously much more nasty names. But actually, we, the public, citizens, local residents and businesses, are the lifebeat of the nation. And it's about time we think that people that are elected representatives understand that there's been far too long we've had these technocratic impulses, not so much internationally coming from abroad, but actually homegrown in Britain. And we need to hold them accountable. They need to be able to answer questions, and we need to be able to engage properly together. So I'm just going to play a short video of a couple of clips of some of the damaging consequences in the words of other people. First, I'm going to start with a grandmother in Oxford who's talking about the concerns after Oxford allegedly had a trial of LTNs, low traffic neighbourhoods. Now they've got a trial of 15-minute cities with bus gates. Then they've got another trial coming up they're going to propose on February the 21st, where school teachers and nurses are going to be charged much more money to come into the city, it's already not livable, and actually park. All of these are trials, we're told, but yet each one is based on the other. And here in Bath, we've seen quite a lot of measures, as Caroline said, 15 LTNs already with a plan for 48, RPZs and 20-mile-an-hour zones. But just have a listen to this for a bit, and then I'll come back to you.
I'm a grandmother who picks up her grandchildren every day from school in North Oxford. It's a 3-mile drive and it takes about 10 minutes, and the traffic is always light at the time. With the traffic filters, I will have to drive north. That will be 12 miles and it will take 30-40 minutes. depending on traffic that is already high. Residents like me only have 100 passes per year. At the moment, I still have a very active life and see my family every day, but the filters could seriously affect that. Furthermore, these policies will make the traffic and pollution on both the Ring Road and the A34 far worse.
In August 2022, Haringey Council slapped an LTN around our high street. This had an immediate impact on our business, which saw a drop in revenue of around 15 to 20%. We don't rely on just customers coming from the local area to shop on our high street. We're a destination high street, and customers were coming from outside the area and outside the borough to shop in our street. So overnight, Haringey Council changed the business model. And this was done with no consultation with the businesses. So by the end of this month, January 2023, we will be out of the high street. So within 4 months, Haringey Council have pushed us out. This is the reality of what the LTN has done. We're having to move out of our shop because we can't stay here anymore and make money.
Far right, outsiders, local residents and businesses who are having their livelihoods crushed after the damages of lockdowns. People are trying to do something with the cost of living crisis, and yet they're being treated very contemptuously. Over 65% of people said they did not want the LTNs in Haringey. We now have places like Islington Council and Hackney Council saying 70 to 75% LTNs. We've got a plan in Birmingham in the Midlands for 7 zones and more of these things. And here in Bath, it's almost as though people want to have grids and zones, and yet they don't want to talk to you, ladies and gentlemen, about it, it seems, right? They don't want to have that discussion. Well, tonight we're going to have that discussion. You're going to hear from a lot of people here. I'm not going to say too much more now because I am going to come back to you at the end of these and talk a bit about the history of how we got here and what some of these ideas that have formed it, and then a little bit about what we can do about it. But just before I introduce the next very special guest, I just want to say that we like to be very open. So I'm just going to tell you all, like, the reason we formed together, which was based on the day that Boris Johnson announced that it would be Freedom Day, but by the way, we're going to have all these kind of identity passports. What happened was lots of people thought that was unacceptable. Now, the point's always been that if the majority of people in Britain agree with something through a discussion and understanding, then they can address it. And my background has been in hospitality for 30 years. And we sort of, and that was the thing that inspired me to get involved and work with lots of other people. And I think it's really important that when we start hearing kind of accusations and smears, or when we see, for instance, what's happened in Oxford on Cowley Road, where people have been threatened in their shops by people who are campaigners, very shrill, very small amount of them, but saying, we're going to make sure you'll have a veto on your shop. People start getting scared and concerned, things that are happening, that we all stand together, we have a bit of solidarity, and we say it's unacceptable. The decent people in our neighbourhoods, in our cities and towns, we need to talk about urban planning, we need to talk about what's going on, and we should all stand together. And that is the spirit of what we're about. And we can address any of these questions tonight, but I now want to, I'm very excited to, it's true, I'm very excited to introduce Sharon Davies. Sharon is someone who's got a lot of courage and has been an enormous advocate and a great British icon. And I'm not going to say anything else, just because they come on up, Sharon. Thank you very much.
I'm dying. I can't get by you. Evening, ladies and gentlemen. Fantastic. I hope you can hear out there. I kind of got roped in at the last minute because I, like so many people, I was on Twitter and I was seeing these things happening across the country. I saw a consultation that had happened in Oxford where 90% of the people that were consulted said, we don't want this, and they were totally and utterly ignored. That's not a democracy. That is not the country that we should be living in. We voted these people in and they should be speaking for us. And right now they really are not speaking for us. So just before I go on any further, I absolutely hate things that are stealth. And what happens in the world that is sport, and that's been my soapbox, and I will go back to that soapbox, believe me, and leave this expert area to these guys as well. But this is my city. I live in Bradford-on-Avon, but I shop here. I spend my money in your shops, And I come here and I buy my food, and I am a Bath person now. I've been here for 12 years. My son goes to school here, and I'm also a patron for disability sport. And this is going to affect those vulnerable people in our society that cannot now get into the city at all. And it's outrageous. You know, they haven't consulted the people that it's going to affect. This Ring of Steel, just the name of it is quite scary. And calling people names to try to shut them up so they can't bring their argument out into the open is outrageous and should not be allowed in a free speech society. Let's all just be heard and have a decent debate. And we can listen to everyone's point of view, and we can try to be fair and sensible. And there are often compromises. You know, there are ways that we can make most people happy. You're never going to be able to make everybody happy. But that's the point of a democracy. We make the most people happy. It is going to be those people that are struggling with disabilities that are going to struggle. I've had a chat with Mark down here. I know he's a bit shy, doesn't want to talk out loud, but he was breaking my heart outside and talking about how his life has changed drastically. He has a disability. He used to meet his wife and come and have a cup of coffee. He now can't do that. And because even taxis aren't allowed to go down Midsum Street. All right, so his life has changed for the worst. That's not what councils are supposed to do. They're supposed to make our lives better. They're not doing that. I mentioned Oxford. You know, why are consultations going on stealth? Why are we not hearing about these things? Why are they doing them right before Christmas when no one's paying attention? Why are they turning around and saying people that actually aren't saying yes or no go into the yes camp? When actually they haven't said yes or no, they've just said give us more information. But that information isn't forthcoming. Shops have gone through hell. I only parked around the corner in the circle, and I've literally walked, I don't know, 50 yards, 60 yards, 4 shops empty. If this goes on, there will be more shops empty in Bath. How is that good for Bath? How is that good for our community? How is that good for city centres? How is that good for people not being isolated? You know, we spend more and more time sitting in our offices, sitting in our houses, doing less things where we interact with other people, and it's really not good for our health. It's very bad for our physical health, but it's even worse for our mental health. So these are things that we need to talk about. Excuse me whilst I turn over, otherwise I'm going to get all emotional, and you don't want any of that. The other thing is, haven't we had some fiascos already in Bath? You know, Dorchester Street. That was a really clever move, wasn't it? And they had to reverse on that. So let's talk about the things that have gone on in the past and that they haven't seemed to have learnt any lessons from. Councillors need to be made to listen. The only thing I will say just finally before I go is that if they don't listen, then you vote them out. And if they're only voted in by a few hundred people, we can make a difference. Please realise that you can make a difference. You can talk to your neighbours, your friends, you can talk to these school teachers that Ala's just been talking about. How the hell are they going to start finding more money to be able to just come in and do their job? I mean, that seems to me absolutely insane. My son, who plays for Bath Academy, at rugby, he broke his ankle, clever lad, in September. And so he was in a cast for 3 months in October, November and December. Now, I live in Bradford-on-Avon. He jumps on the train because I believe in using public transport as much as possible. I cycle. I love it. All right? I'm all for all these things. However, for that 3-month period, he couldn't walk up the hill from the railway station in Bath all the way up to Beechamcliff, which is where he goes to school. So I had to drive him. If I had to pay the fines, it would be hundreds of pounds just to have been able to take my son to school for 3 months. That's insane. So please just listen. Thank you so much for turning up today. I'm not going to stay on this regular soapbox because this is these guys' thing. You know, I've got my own arguments in sport that we're working hard on. And we are seeming to make some good headway. I've just had some very good news tonight, I can't tell you, but tomorrow, watch out for that. And I'm going to hand you back to the microphone. And I've got to go off, sadly. It was very much a quick nip in, but I didn't want to miss this opportunity to say that I am a proud Bath person. And, you know, I would be very sad to see the demise of the city. And I think that's what will happen if we let this go on unabated. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Sharon. That's absolutely fantastic. Really, really appreciate you being here and supporting Bath.
Next, I'd like to introduce Norma Barrett and Fethia Wilkins. These guys live in Southlands in Weston, and they have the misfortune of being very close to some barricades.
Sweet of you to applaud when I'm actually nobody. I'm just a resident. I live in Southlands. Southlands is an estate just behind the hospital, probably around 300 homes. I hope you can hear me okay. Yeah. But about 300 homes. We have been subject to planters being placed in the middle of the road. Not one, not two, not three, not four, not five, but 6 planters, 3 sets of planters been put in the road. The council had a consultation or several series and meetings where some people knew about it and attended. They also had an online consultation survey that people could respond to. This well-publicised survey that the council had on the council website, 99 people responded. There's over 300 homes, households in Southlands. 99 people responded. I'm sure you're amazed about that. But the real issue is of that 99 people that responded, only 28 actually lived in Southlands. It gets better. Of the 28 people from Southlands that actually responded, 11 voted in favour and 12 voted against and 5 that weren't sure. So guess what? The ones that weren't sure and the ones that voted in favour were seen as the majority, and the scheme went ahead. Now, that's not democracy. You know, they tell us that, oh, we consulted, and many of us went to those meetings and actually said these, you know, this is going to cause significant issues. It's actually where they've positioned the planters is actually dividing the street into 2. So we've now got almost 2 estates where we had 1. The impact of it is that there are people who feel incredibly isolated now. And Fatty will talk a little bit more about how it's impacted on those, particularly those people with disabilities. But the issue has always been for Southlands around parking, lack of parking spaces in Southlands. 6 years ago, the council tried to impose a resident parking permits. That was rejected. And the issue around the lack of parking spaces persisted. So what the council's actually done over the last year or so is actually systematically reduce the numbers of parking spaces by increasing the amount of yellow lines and also instituting further white lines that extend far beyond people's driveways. And in addition to that, they've reduced the parking spaces by putting the planters with approximately 2 car distance in between them. So they've got this massive gap in between the sets of planters where 2 cars could have parked. It might not sound significant, but we have really major issues around parking, and it's caused a lot of neighbourhood disputes. And the reasons why I'm here is because of the levels of neighbourhood disputes that it's actually caused in relation to parking. So the council has actually created a solution to a problem that never existed. The problem was told to us that Southlands was a rat run, but people have to drive their cars to Lansdowne, and they also have to get to Bristol. And the other alternative is to go around what is a highly polluted high street. We have had no deaths, no significant accidents in Southlands in 12 years that I've lived here. That's not coming from me, that's coming from the government website. You can look it up you can, for all your areas, the levels of accidents that occur. There's been no significant accidents. However, I'm sure if you're a Bath resident, you will remember the Lansdowne Lane deaths that were caused with the traffic coming down at speed down Lansdowne Lane, and a number of residents died there. But what have the council done? They've actually increased the traffic on the high street. Now, the livable neighbourhood scheme is meant to be a climate action and to prevent, reduce our carbon emission and all of those wonderful things that many of us are in support of. However, what it's actually done is increase the levels of pollution on the high street. We've got stationary traffic on the high street. It's added 10 to 15 minutes on certain people's ability to drive, because they have to now go around the high street in order to get to the other side of the street. So it's really been very, very divisive. And what they've done is that they've diverted the traffic. It hasn't reduced the traffic in any way. It's a cheap and nasty solution to a problem that never existed. I'm just going to hand you over to my colleague, who's actually wants to talk a little bit about the impact it's had on people who we've canvassed in Southlands around who have disabilities as well.
Hi everyone, my name is Fatia. So before Christmas, we just wake up and there are 6 planters there. And some people say, oh, did you not receive the letters from the council? So apparently this consultation started 2 years ago. I didn't receive anything, but also who opens letters from, unless they are bills or something you're aware of? You just put them in with the leaflets and then you throw them. So I thought, this is a bit unusual. Is this the majority that wanted that? Or is it a minority? So I thought, I'm gonna do my own research. I will go and knock on everybody's door, because I really want to know if it's the majority, then we'll have to, accept. That's democracy. The majority wanted it, so we'll have to go with it, and no questions. My surprise came after about 2 or 3 weekends of knocking on people's doors and really hearing their stories. They did not want that. The majority didn't even know that they could have a say. They didn't know it was, a trial. They didn't know about the consultation, and they were so inconvenienced by it. Not just, the people that commute and it takes them longer. We're talking about people with disabilities, elderly people, people with children, people who, actually, let me just ask you, how many of you work in health and social care? Do you mind putting your hand up? Okay, I have worked in health and social care, and there is no time to see many people on one day if you have a caseload. I have knocked on people's doors that need carers, that need support workers, mental health support workers, and these workers can't come and see them. You know why? You have 6, 7 people to see in one day. If it's gonna take you 20 minutes extra, going on the detour, on the alternative route, you're gonna have not only no place to park and no time, you're gonna see your client. I can only see you, Miss Jones, 10 minutes, and then I really have to go. How can you say that to somebody that has macular degeneration and really relies on you? How? So it's not just, it's not really the people that can have a say. People that are elderly don't even know that they have an online feedback form. How are you gonna say that? How are they gonna, you need an email address to fill out that form. How many people on that street have one? We're talking about people that still get their newspaper. So these are the people that are invisible. These are the people whose voices are never heard, who have been apparently consulted. It's a sham consultation. It's just not been fair. Not been fair. So the other thing, we're talking about how Southlands has to be made safe for children. Fair enough. I have one. I believe in the safety of children. I believe in nature. I believe in all these things, and I really respect that. But by doing that, have they ever thought about the safety of the children that live on the alternative route? I went and knocked on the houses that they live there. There are loads of blocks. It's very difficult because people that live in those blocks, they don't tend to have their voice heard. They're either very busy or hardly at home, or it's just really hard. But Southlands and the High Street it's very close to 2 schools, so there are plenty of kids that live there. Anyway, I finally managed to get hold of some, and they said no, they are scared of putting their kids on that path because it's jam-packed all of the time. That path is full of cars queuing. There's a bottleneck. You see kids trying to scoot in between. It's just not okay. When we think about the safety of our children, we need to think, does it come at the cost of other children? Are our kids safe enough? So I guess really we need to think about the unintended consequences. It's all nice to think about safety, to think about, pollution, but don't you think when you have to do a detour that takes extra 20 minutes, emissions, stationary cars sitting there waiting for their turn? So really, it's nice and it's a sweet narrative, but nobody looks underneath to see the real costs and implications. So that's all I've got to say.
Thank you so much, Becky. We're now going to hear, on behalf of Moorland Road, from David Pye, a shop owner and businessman.
Thank you very much, everyone. I don't know if anybody recognised me, but I've been a shop owner in Moorland Road for the last 20 plus years with my wife. She's the boss, I'm the servant, and we have a card and gift shop. And just preliminary to this, what I'm going to say now, it's the hardest time at the moment. We've never had trading as bad as it is now. And much of that is caused through what is happening now. So anyway, from the Moorland Road Association, members have drawn up a statement regarding RPZ plans for Oldfield Park, which I've been asked to read out, so I won't be looking up very often. The council's residence parking zone for Oldfield Park area is a disaster for Moorland Road High Street and the shops and businesses that operate there, and is a huge own goal by the council. If the council had worked with us, they could have devised a scheme that met with their aim of reducing traffic and parking whilst protecting local shops and businesses. Instead, the council have chosen to ignore the concerns of local shops and businesses and are pushing ahead with a scheme that will inflict irreparable damage to the Moorland Road community. Right, continuing, I'm going to highlight points that have been raised by some of our members. The MRA is not opposed to the principle of parking controls for the area, but the proposed scheme is flawed and will inflict huge damage on businesses at a time when they are facing unprecedented economic challenges. We have repeatedly made this point to the council, but they are unwilling to engage with us. The MRA, this is somebody else now, the MRA has repeatedly reached out to the council and invited them to meet with us to discuss our concerns as to why we believe the proposed scheme poses such a threat to our businesses and offer them some practical solutions to the problem. The council never responded to these invitations to meet. The stated aim of a livable neighbourhood is to reduce vehicle dominance and through traffic, whilst maintaining vehicle access to homes and businesses. The current design of the RPZ does not fulfil this criteria. All businesses, service providers, and so on will be massively impacted by RPZ. Britain's dying high streets are losing 50 shops a day. Against this backdrop, the council decided to press ahead with a scheme that every business told them would spell disaster for themselves and Moorland Road generally. We believe it is perfectly possible to devise a scheme that can be both reduce congestion and parking issues and protect the high street. We have repeatedly invited the council to meet with us to discuss solutions but they have met with silence or at best platitudes. We commissioned our own survey of local residents and businesses. It shows that the majority of residents, 61%, and 100% of businesses are opposed to the council's plans. We sent the council a copy of our survey and its findings. The council never responded. Our survey showed that 70% of residents and 92% of businesses would prefer Monday to Friday enforcement only. Why then introduce 7 days a week enforcement? Weekend enforcement is particularly damaging for shops and businesses and unnecessary to address the commuter parking, which the council say is a key issue. Business confidence plummets at the prospects of the RPZ. 69% of businesses were optimistic about the future if no RPZ was introduced, whereas 89% were pessimistic under the proposed scheme. Tellingly, 55% of businesses said they would be optimistic if the proposed scheme was improved. The loss of the co-op scalar parking was not at any time factored into the consultation process, despite being specifically highlighted by a local ward councillor prior to the final design being produced. Our local councillors did not support the proposed plans, yet their voices were ignored. Extra shopping bays and dual-use bays were highlighted by these councillors as key issues, yet this was ignored in the final scheme design. We suggested much greater use of dual-use bays to allow non-permit holders the chance to visit local shops and businesses. Adding more dual-use bays to the Moorland Road area was deemed impossible due to the being of significant change to the proposals. Why? Other RPZ areas had changes made of similar significance. It is clear that the consultations were nothing more than the tick box exercises the council needed to perform to enable them to do what they planned all along. No amount of evidence, sound argument or common sense was going to deflect them from the predetermined outcome they had in mind. The council have gone from the current situation where there are no restrictions whatsoever to the hardest, most restrictive 7-day-a-week type scheme, a full-scale assault on cars, parking, shops and businesses. In the council's press release, they make the claim that they have, quote, revised some of the zones with shopping streets to include more dual-use bays, ensuring a balance is struck between the needs of residents and local shops. This is highly misleading. The council have failed completely to engage with the business community or listen to their concerns. Any minor revisions made in the Oldfield Park RPZ have been so insignificant as to be practically worthless. If the council genuinely cared about livable neighbourhoods and making people's lives better, they would have listened to our concerns and worked with us to develop sensible solutions. How does it improve the lives of Oldfield Park community for the council to hammer in a final nail into shops and businesses in the Moorland Road? It seems that the council are prepared to see businesses and livelihoods wrecked, and that is a price they believe is worth paying to press ahead with their plans. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I mean, incredible, actually, listening to you guys. I just going to do this technical thing. Sorry. I just think you've heard there some really brilliant examples of the level of insight and expertise and experience and understanding in stark contrast to what it seems like people who are just not prepared to listen, have got some kind of idea of a plan they want to implement, and are just disregarding any rational debate, any consideration about true logistics, what the costs and benefits are, and what that means for everyone. And it really is unacceptable. And I think this evening we can talk a bit about what can be done. We heard a bit about Ealing before, but there have been many places where low traffic neighbourhoods have been challenged by local residences and businesses and have been overturned. And, you know, it's very much the case that if the majority of people, even a sizable group of people, are vocal and organised properly and efficiently, you can get a proper debate, but you also can get results. And not just the elections in May, but also in terms of putting pressure on them. And we'll talk about all those sorts of things, calls to action and everything. But I want to just do a little quick potted history of maybe how we got here. Urban planning used to have big debates, right? About, you know, tunneling to the future, Victorian bridges, highways. There were raging debates, right? And there were controversies. There were people like Jane Jacobs and Robert Moses, and the big scale plans that sometimes disregarded some local people to the kind of nuanced communities and what they could be about. But we've just heard from people, residents and businesses that light up our streets, that make them what they are, and yet they're being disregarded. And I think we need to get back to a proper discussion about urban planning. But it was Ken Livingstone in 1999 that said, "I hate cars, and if I ever get powers again, I'd ban the lot of them." Ken Livingstone hosted the first climate summit of 18 megacities in 2004-5 called C40 Cities. And we should remember that name when people talk about outsiders, because C40 Cities is now a very big international organisation of which a certain mayor of London is now the chair. In 2007, Mike Bloomberg got involved, and in 2015 it was taken to the UN COP21 Paris. So then all of a sudden, all of these ideas that are being promoted by C40 Cities get international backing. Now, at COP21, Carlos Moreno presented his idea of a 15-minute city, no pollution, no noise. And this kind of idea, it might sound, the no noise bit is a bit strange, right? But, you know, obviously, as people have said, you know, the question of pollution, you can discuss it, and what does it mean, and what is the real air quality? Not sort of bogus stats where you take them in a certain place and you consider them in a certain way, but actual, you know, really robust data, and you can have a conversation about how people want to improve things. But these ideas that Marino presented basically got put on steroids as, you know, we went through the terrible experience of the last few years, and we saw lockdowns. And it was Anne Hidalgo in Paris in 2020 that really got the kind of things working internationally that around the 20-minute city. And that kind of inspired different areas by leaders, not by citizens, in Dublin, Barcelona, Milan, and Lisbon. And we should be clear that there's a kind of intertwining between leaders and very big corporations who often promote some of these ideas. And just what then happens is you get a situation with companies like NREP, who then across the Nordic nations start implementing some of these ideas with low traffic neighborhoods and 15-minute cities. So they build things precisely as we've heard now, without certain car parks, with the notion that you're going to live in a certain way. A lot of the different cities, county councils and city councils have signed up to these things. And it's really worth checking and seeing who has and what it means, because these all then get informed up and down the line, and they get a lot of backing financially. And we end up seeing these things that kind of basically are checkpoint Charlies across the country, right? In our towns and cities, all of a sudden, now, for instance, for me in London, it takes me double the time to see my disabled mother that it did do, and going through places that are often congested, as we've heard, and getting fines quite regularly. So Sadiq Khan is now the chair of C40 Cities, and his legacy, he wants it to be that we have many of these things across the country, as well as the ULEZ expansion, which again we're seeing, and it's worth relating this and about the kind of technocratic point, that even when 80% of people who respond to something say they don't want it, he then, in addition to discounting about 5,000 people who have responded and votes, then says, well, that's not really the right kind of response, so I'm going to do it anyway. Now, this is kind of becoming more popular amongst people that are leading, and I just think as citizens and as local residents that we really need to hold them to account. It's just not acceptable, as you've heard, right? It's just not really acceptable. Boris Johnson... I thought someone said Alan. Boris Johnson was promoting the active travel. It's called many things: active travel, livable streets, these 15 and 20-minute neighbourhoods. They're kind of presented in certain ways. But he urged councils, and not only did he urge councils to consider low traffic neighbourhoods, but then started funding them to a tune of over 100 million, and then so that they would make money from them themselves. Now, we should be honest, and we've invited people to this, but when we do, and I think we could talk about it tonight, we should have a big public debate where everyone who has views on this, is actually formally, properly requested to come and put their case forward. Because there are groups in the UK, like UK 100, and some of the cycling groups that are very actively funded and arguing to do certain things, but have somehow think that they should bypass the democratic moment. So all you people, everyone in this room, I've just got to say how inspiring it is to see everyone, but we're told that it's done, the choices are made, this all happens, but it's not. And when you see you've got a room like this with people who are actually concerned, they want to, like, then you begin to see that it's not the case. And as we've heard, these 99 votes, of which 11 were in favour, you know, you just think this is a travesty, and it is really infuriating. Now, Ealing, as I said, scrapped 7 low traffic neighbourhoods. It was demonstrated, like the discussion on ULEZ, it was being demonstrated, and like the points have been made about shifting traffic and further driving and just moving them to other areas, that actually it makes traffic worse, but has no impact on air. In some areas makes it much worse, and often it's the poorest sections of society are the most worse off, both in terms of the 15 and 20 minute neighbourhoods, where on the one hand, they don't have services there. And even when you do, we know what it's like getting to see a GP or anything else. But in addition to that, where the air impacts are, and this is a very important point that's been made, that it's okay for here, but what about the consequences elsewhere? And I think these points need to be really made. There are a lot of challenges happening up and down the country. In spite of people saying, oh, it's just a few people, there are people, locals like you guys, residents and businesses that are actually, and some have been doing it for a couple of years, that are saying this isn't acceptable. But often you get a situation where you can get, the councils have got time and they've got money, our money, which they often spend on things, and people only have a certain amount of time and commitment. But, ladies and gentlemen, when we get involved together and start working on a concise way of how to challenge these things and bring them out, we can actually get changes made quite quickly. There's all sorts of ways that you can do that. One of the reasons we've got these Take Back Democracy and Free Our Streets points is that we think it's really, really important. Yeah, if you all want to hold them up, then we can show everyone, we'll have a little moment there, Paul, and you can flick it around. What we're all going to do, everyone, we're going to take back democracy. And what we mean by that is that the voices of ordinary people, like residents, locals, families, businesses, all get heard. And we don't want to have kind of being palmed off, sidelined, treated with contempt. But, you know, often when people talk in policy terms about the public or the people, they talk about us in very negative ways. I said I came from hospitality originally, and I saw a lot of this in discussion about zones. Talk about us as almost that we're conveyors of bad things, of crime, or of terrible things to one another, when actually what we are is we're the people that make the country work. We light up the streets. And, you know, in the past, we've had campaigns, and we saw effectively in Hackney, for instance, as an example, one of the views of councillors is that you're never really going to do anything and no one cares, and everyone's a bit stupid and dim and they can't be bothered to do anything. And they actually said to me, well, Alan, you've got all these ideas about how these things should happen, but when you go out and speak to everyone, they're just going to say we're not interested and you're going to be humiliated. I said, great, you know what, that's called democracy. So let's get them all out and let's do that. And what happened was 30,000 people in Hackney came and got involved in a campaign at the time called We Love Hackney. And they were shocked because they didn't realise that people cared so much, because actually what's happened is that people running things have stopped being accountable to people and actually listening. And that's the thing we need to get them back in the habit of doing and get into practice, and making sure that our thoughts, our concerns, our views, our ideas are heard properly and clearly. There's lots of things that make a great city. But one of the things, of course, at the heart of it is people. And us traveling together, meeting together, putting events on together, falling in love together, sometimes falling out of love. But fantastic boroughs, the heart and soul is always where people come together, not where we have barricades and blockades, not where we're getting fined and taxed to move around, not when people with mobility issues, we're elderly, our families, on the school run, where we aren't able to do these things. Now, these guys have spoken much more eloquently about those points, but these impacts, these costs are really monumental to us. I'm going to flick through these things just to say that basically we've got a lot of challenges that we've all got to deal with today, but the way that we do them is to put ourselves at the heart of them. We should be at the heart of any considerations of town, city and urban planning, what our needs are and our requirements. And I think there's some really simple ways to do that. One of the things that's really important and effective, sometimes people say, what's the point? You write to a councillor, they don't really, but writing emails and phoning them and then sending them a letter and then visiting them and then calling them back and posting it on socials has a big impact. Calling them, inviting them to a town hall meeting where everyone emails them, says, I really hope as my local councillor and my local MP, you'll be coming to attend this meeting because I'm going to be voting on the basis of what you do about this. And whoever is going to be standing on these points is who will be getting my vote. And if we convince our friends and our neighbours and our colleagues to do that, then very quickly, everyone, they're going to pay significant attention to us. And that involves obviously things like giving out flyers, meeting people in cafes, posting on socials, and having an ongoing concerted campaign. And we can talk a bit about some of the things that have been effective and how we do it and what's worked in different places. But I think it'll be a good opportunity now to sort of to get into sort of the kind of comments point. People can raise some questions and all of that, and then we can come back to some of this. Yeah? Great.
So if anyone's got any comments, if you'd like to come here and make your voices heard, it's easier if you just come and take the mic. Yeah, and Leslie's the expert at this.
Hi, everybody. Good to see you. And we're just going to take points and questions from the floor. If we can keep it on topic, that'd be great. And I'll hold the mic. Hello. You'd like to say who you are?
Yeah, my name's Hannah Downey. I was the only person in Bath that held the council to account over the Ring of Steel. I'm now affected personally by Liverpool neighbourhood. I'm now contributing 3 times the amount of carbon emissions to do the school run for my 3 children. And for the Ring of Steel, I've lost 10% of my income. Now, I took the council to tribunal, not just because of my personal issues. I had lots of people from the disabled communities on side. We could all end up being disabled. We're all going to end up being elderly one day. It will affect us all, not just me at my age now. But actually, why I really took them to tribunal is because of contempt. I accused the council of contempt because I realised they were lying to us. I managed to get through the freedom of information from the police. And the police did not request the Ring of Steel. If anyone wants to talk to me about detail on that, I will fill them in on it. I'm about to I can't at the moment get an article published in the Chronicle because I think I've been slightly shut down. Anyway, at the tribunal, somebody tried to produce a list of 100 businesses that did not want the Ring of Steel at the consultation that apparently the council didn't want to know about or hadn't been submitted correctly for the consultation. The consultation, in my view, was done completely under the guise of COVID measures. They were exactly the same streets that were shut for the Ring of Steel that were shut for COVID measures. People were wandering around with a feeling that they wanted to do their bit for the COVID pandemic. They did not realise that this was going to be permanent. Now, the police did not want the Ring of Steel. They wanted an outer ring that was not put in the public domain. Once the council realised that a member of the public had got hold of this information, they started to panic. And the problem was, I got embroiled in it because I put a comment on the application. I have had a property, incidentally, inside the Ring of Steel for over 26 years. It's now devalued you name it. I put a comment on that actually was legally binding. So the council had to appease me. The reason I refused to, they weren't prepared to appease me. So legally, we were at stalemate. And the reason I ended up taking them to tribunal, one, because they lied to us. Principally, they lied to the public of Bath. The police wanted the rugby, they wanted our theatres, they wanted our cinema, they wanted our historic buildings, they wanted the Bath Half Marathon, they wanted the Remembrance Sunday Parades, all protected. None of those events, as I stand here today, have any plan to be protected, and they're not protected. Those rugby matches that my husband stands on, timed and dated events, are not protected by a terrorist threat. We've been lied to. Now, I want to put this into some sort of language that we can all understand. I've now been accused of costing the council money. I was actually bullied and patronised by the council. I was phoned in my kitchen one Tuesday morning when they realised they'd got to stalemate by the leader, Will Godfrey. He said, "I am the CEO of Baines." He was bullying, he was patronising and threatening. When I put the phone down that day, my heart was beating in my chest. That was the moment I decided I'm not backing down. You cannot do that. Because I stood up for what I genuinely believed in. I've lived in the city all my life, I'm about fourth, fifth generation. I believed that I was being shut down because I knew the truth. And anyway, to put this in a language that we can all understand, I'm now being accused of costing the Ring of Steel. The bollards are going at the end of York Street now. I have property in Abbey Green. The bollards are being put there now. At the moment, the cost of that stands at £3 million. I've had a word with the contractors. The reason that costs us £3 million to put those bollards in is because it's going to take 5 months, by the way. So I asked them, why 5 months? And they said, we're going to have to realign all 3 services, and because of the historic vaults below the street, there's a very complicated structural issues we've got to overcome. Now, you only have to read the government papers to know that children in this country, and this is a language we can all understand, the government pays about £7,000 a year, I'm talking round figures, for each child in this country to be educated. Now, my 3 children went to a local primary school. I happen to know as an ex-governor that they had about £1.5 million a year to educate 220 children. We're going to spend £3 million putting in a set of bollards at the end of York Street that none of us have asked for. So, at the moment, I'm teetering on deciding whether to stand in the next election. Because I don't know whether to go for as an independent or politics is not my thing. But if I have backing and I have support, I'm prepared to Hannah Downey.
I think you'd all back Hannah Downey, wouldn't you? Yeah. Well, what we can do is we can get your details and we can share that with everybody. We've asked everybody here to give us your name and your email address. I know lots of you are on the Telegram group and on other ways, but if we can kind of make sure before you leave this evening, we will share all the details of the different issues like this with everybody and start to kind of work with Caroline and all of you guys to kind of make sure that we get this done. Yeah.
And also, I only found about this this afternoon. So there must be many more people like us and like me who don't even know this event is going ahead that would support this. A friend of mine just happened to phone me to say, I think you might be interested in this. Also during this, just to show how inept the council is, they forgot or omitted to redact my personal information from the consultation papers. I have been contacted by some members of the public. It's a severe breach. They have to resolve that within 28 days. They didn't, so it's now with the ISA. And because I think someone has a bit of a grumble against me, they decided to report me to the tax office, or someone has reported me to the tax office. I don't know whether, I'm not saying who it is or who I think that it is. I don't know, but thankfully I pay all my tax, so it's not a problem. But it just goes to show, and I haven't even put my name really in the public domain. Never. This is the only thing I've ever done that I've raised my head above the parapet. But I do think it is a worthy cause.
Well done.
Thank you.
Hello? That's true. Yeah. So if you put your hand up in a minute, we'll work it out. Hello? Yeah, if you do that, I'm just going to get the people that came up to the front and then we'll kind of make sure we get around everybody.
Very brief point. My name's Fiona Williams. I'm from Bath at Safe Technology. I've been a resident here for about 14 years. I want to raise the wider agenda that's going on here with Agenda 2030. I think you've touched on it in your presentation, and how they're going to be monitoring all this traffic reduction scheme is smart tech and 5G in particular. I just want to make you aware that this is planned. They want to make Bath and Bristol into a smart city conurbation with a mesh monitoring all of our movements, and it's traffic reduction, climate change seems to be arguably used, but actually it's about more forms of social control. So it's another assault on our freedoms. Last point is that action against 5G, you've got a judicial review in London on Monday and Tuesday. Michael Mansfield QC is representing to stop all of this kind of things. It's a surveillance agenda, it's health, it's environment, but it's also about freedom. So thank you.
Thank you. Just bringing them over this way. Good evening.
Hi, I'm Chris Murphy. I'm representing my street. They all want to stay at home. Right, we've all written to the council. Right, I'd first like to say the business report that came out from Moorlands Road. Moorland Road kept us alive, the businesses, during COVID. Right? We didn't see a social worker, but they made sure that the vulnerable, or even the old farts like me, were serviced, as it were. So they delivered vegetables. If you went to the shop, somebody would say, "Oh, I haven't seen Mrs. So-and-so." So we pop round to see them. So, number one, Moorlands Road was absolutely essential to the well-being of the community. Number two, they're supposed to be Liberal Democrats. Wait a minute. Liberal Democrats, flag flying is we believe in local democracy. I could blow a raspberry in. And what's my third point? I have dealt with the council on innumerable occasions with their consultations. At one point I asked, will this consultation influence policy? And they turned around and said, no. So what's the point of going? And that.
Well, I like that.
I got one more point.
Double act.
Before they do anything, they should do a needs analysis, put the data together, look at their beneficiaries, and have feedback from the data and another discussion. But they don't listen.
No, they don't listen. Thank you very much. And then I'll come out and come and see the people who can't. Right, if you can you keep it nice and short? Do you reckon?
It's Angie Paddock, and I'm a resident in Southlands, probably further down from the barriers than these two ladies. I was at those consultations, and I raised a point about the risk assessments of those planters being there for emergency services. And also, it was mentioned the turning point where those barriers are is not big enough. Now, there's myself, and there was a few other residents that mentioned that. In the report they did, it mentioned only one person said that turning point was too small. And there was a person, yeah, exactly. There was a person from out of town. And I said, well, actually, no, when I filled the forms in, as the rest of us did, I put down that turning point is too small for vehicles to turn around. So I actually spoke to the head of the Liverpool community, Ashley, yeah. So I've been emailing him back and forth. And his point, one of his points that yes, our data collection, we need to have a review of that. So obviously some of what was said during those consultations has kind of disappeared, you know. I did ask him about the turning point, the width for vehicles to go down. So a fire engine crew came out. They didn't know the planters had been put there. Now, the councillors say they were all informed, but that crew did not know. The fire truck got stuck. So they had to reverse all the way down Southlands to Penhill and reverse out onto a main road. We've had delivery vehicles not being able to turn around. They're reversing all the way down Southlands. So it's made it
to me, more dangerous. Exactly, you get kids playing, you get them running out to the road. That's right. Yeah, so but that risk assessment, they've done a little bit on the report, but it doesn't, no. And even the recycling and rubbish guys that were there that morning, because they remeasured it, they couldn't turn their trucks around to get back out.
Doesn't sound like any of this is working. I'm going to come out over there to the lady who. Thank you. Yeah, hang on a sec. There was where's the lady who had mobility issues? She's over there, right? Hang on a second. Bear with me, everybody. Hello, nice to see you all. Hello. Right, hang on. If you can say your name.
Hi, my name's Linda Lloyd. I was involved with the council for 2 years with regard to the Ring of Steel, and hopefully was helpful in getting it not only 24 hours a day, which is what the original plan was, but also forcing them into a very expensive accessibility study, which uncovered the fact that accessibility issues from a few years back had still not been carried out and haven't been now. But it did enable blue badge holders to actually gain access into the city centre by producing your blue badge. But the other issues are there are not enough disabled bays, loading bays which are 24 hours a day, which don't need to be, and the increasing use of double stripes on the curbs where we used to be able to park on yellow lines and now cannot, one being Bridge Street down by the side of the Victoria Art Gallery. The closure of Kingsmead Square is a major problem, as is Milsom Street. And what it's doing is forcing the less able people into their homes at night because of the distances that have to be covered. And I raised it as well in relation to women when they were going to close it for 24 hours in the Ring of Steel, of taxis not being able to get to women who were using the city at night. And that's the same, all right, Milsom Street is now 6 o'clock. But it's just a closing down of the city to the more vulnerable members of our society. And that is what is completely wrong. We should be opening up the city and not closing it down further. And you were right, whoever mentioned about the fact that it was originally done for lockdown, and then they jumped on the fact that people said, oh, this is lovely, we can sit outside Bill's in the street and you can't have a car down here, how wonderful. But the other thing I wanted to point out is I'm in Walcott. I have a house in Walcott. The residents there, I think there's about 90 of them in goodness knows how many houses, voted the majority against having a residents parking zone, and yet that is being implemented. Beacon Hill, was it, that also voted against? Yeah. They've got away with not having one. And again, this is lack of democracy. The Bains take the view that we've got a website, you should be on there every day, every week, having a look at what the latest consultation is. And the consultations were coming faster and faster and faster. There was a consultation on residents' parking zones in which they were going to stop blue badge holders using the concession to park in a residents' parking zone. They said it was a major problem. They couldn't prove that. They reneged. They went back on that. So again, it was consultation after consultation back in lockdown year. They thought we had nothing better to do than read their website, and that's just ridiculous. They're not consulting, they're not going out to the people, they're relying on us to find out what they're up to, and that's not democratic.
Thank you very much. Right. Okay. You got anybody else? Was there another question? Yeah. Right, hang on a sec. Can you come up, everybody who wants to ask a question, so we can everybody can see you at the front of the room. And unless you can't, but I think, well, okay. We're just trying to kind of get this done as fairly as possible and let everybody have their say. We've only got, what have we got, half an hour? Yeah, okay. Hello, sir.
Hello, guys. My name's Mike. And I'd like to say and ask, where is the council tonight? I did tweet myself there's a gentleman at the back there, great. I did tweet myself to Wear Hop House to see if she'd come, but I didn't get a reply. Look, I like cycling, I hate pollution, I'm for all of that sort of stuff, but I don't think this is what this is about. Somebody said earlier about Agenda 2030, and I think Alan. This is about social control, and this is about anti-car. And Alan mentioned earlier about Active Travel England. Boris Johnson signed off, when he became Prime Minister, £5 billion against that budget. And a high degree of that, not a high degree, but a good degree of that is towards LTNs and smart cities. And smart cities are not a UK thing, they're a global thing. And people need to realise, and please fact check me on this, the UK government is in partnership, has offices with the World Economic Forum in San Francisco. And where did Rishi Sunak go during lockdown? San Francisco. The bigger issue here, I'll just be really quick, the bigger issue here is what's coming next is digital ID, is cashless, is CBDC, central bank digital currency, and ultimately, in the name of climate, net zero credit scores. We are going to be locked down in the name of climate change, and we are going to be controlled with an inch of our life if we don't stand up for ourselves.
Yeah.
Well said, that man. He obviously caught the mood of the room. Right, we just keep it really quickly. If you say yourself.
Okay, my name's Justin. I have a hospitality business on Western High Street. I've noticed that on Western High Street, the traffic has got a lot worse. Now, I have a bay right outside my place, which is double yellow lines. And it's right by the zebra crossing. Now, every day, I see somebody nearly get run over on that crossing, to the point where I do this. Now, I have spoken to the council about putting bollards to block that bay, because once you get a large vehicle parking there, it totally obstructs the zebra crossing. I get no replies. 2 years I've been asking for this. Also then, we had a young girl that was knocked. She wasn't hurt too badly, but then I said, well, look, as this is more traffic coming along these roads, as they are coming down at speeds, as these vehicles were parking here to block this, why can't we change that zebra crossing into a pelican crossing with lights? I'm sorry, we can't afford it.
Okay.
Those issues, instead of putting planters where they shouldn't be. If safety is at the true heart of what they want to do, then why aren't they looking at those issues? Thank you.
Good question, good point. Thank you. So, hello. If we can keep it nice and short and just say your name.
I'll keep it short. I'm Keith Granger. I'm a wine writer. I don't live in Bath. I live out in Wiltshire, but it's so important that I gave support tonight. Alan talked about C40 cities, and please look up the website for this. You'll find fascinating information. The aim of C40 cities, this is their ultimate aim, is to reduce private car ownership in 2030 to zero. Zero. Yeah. Please check out who's funding C40 cities. Not only UK government, many corporations, many companies who you might be spending money with. What I do, I write to these people saying, withdrawing my custom. And they say, thank you for and all the usual cut and paste letter. Don't think it doesn't work. I see PayPal are now laying people off. When PayPal closed the account of Free Speech Union, etc., a lot of people said, yeah, it won't work. But in fact, it does. Withdraw your business. What speaks louder than anything else? Yeah. Money.
Thank you very much, Pete. Thank you. Some practical points there. Don't spend your money with the people that you don't agree with. Right. Hello. Good evening.
Good evening.
What's your name?
Bruce Dearling. Hi. I think it's more a question for everyone. Is there a bigger agenda going on here? We have a kleptocratic government who are imposing continuing or increasing social controls on everyone's movements, everyone's freedom to operate, everyone's ability to spend their own money. Yeah. You know, this isn't about, contentiously, I suppose, the issue of climate control. It isn't. if you really want to look into this, you will find that the Paris Agreement gives a green card, sorry, I used the pun, a green card to China and India until 2070 to build further coal-powered powered stations, increase their CO2 output. And we are going to, we're doing this on a local basis, which will have absolutely zero impact to the global economy. The global economic, the global climate policies, the global economic situation for us is dire as a consequence of these ridiculous impositions of control and restriction.
Thank you for that point. Hello. Good evening. My name's Myoni. I was born and raised in Bath. I think it's very clear from hearing everyone tonight that there might be a multitude of reasons as to why the council are implementing these plans, but it doesn't really matter. The point is that for the local authority, I don't know why we keep calling them authority, because they're not authority over us, but the fact that they think that they can tell us that we can't move freely around our own city is an affront, and people should be very, very angry. And now is the time to take back our authority, free our streets, and say no more of this control from government, local, national, World Economic Forum, or anybody else for that matter. Stand in your power, people. Hey.
Short, sweet, to the point. People back, right, here we go.
Hi, I'm Jeanette Massey. I have invisible disabilities. Various reasons. And just standing up here in front of you all is causing me pain. But I do it. I want to be active. I want to not lose my ability to walk and to carry on a normal life. So I do these things. But the council, by putting in all these rings of steel, no matter how much blue badge holders can get through them, are still impacting on lives. I cannot now go shopping in Milsom Street. I have shopped there once since lockdown, and that caused me a heck of a lot of pain. And the only reason I could do that was because I was going to pick up one small thing. I'm not allowed to lift anything heavier than a bag of sugar. So for me to even go to Waterstones and buy a couple of books, no way. This impacts people on a personal level, on an everyday level, and is hurting us. And when it hurts us, it hurts the businesses. And when the businesses get hurt, everyone gets hurt.
Well said. Thank you for coming up. Thank you.
I wanted to ask, was there someone from the council that wanted to speak this evening? If we should give them an opportunity to speak. I know, seriously, civilly, calmly, politely, give them a warm welcome and see if they want to say a few words. No?
There's a fly up there.
No? Okay, all right, it's fine. I mean, yeah, come on up. We've got a few more minutes. If anyone else wants to come and make a point and speak, we are going to have a chance to have an informal conversation afterwards, and we're going to talk a few practical points as well. If you tell us who you are. And...
Yeah, my name's Dave Inman. I'm part of the Moorland Road Association. What I'd just like to see if this will work. I know the council don't want to say anything, but on local radio there was someone on there, guy. Can't remember his name now, but let me just show you what he says. No, the same guy. Yeah, Kevin Guy, that's it. Hopefully this will play. So when he was questioned about things, this is what we got. Hopefully this will play.
Another question. This is from Colin in Twerton. We recorded this earlier.
I've lived in the city 69 years and I'm now retired. My question for you this morning is, why did the council impose neighbourhood parking schemes on areas where the majority of residents didn't want them, yet in a Lib Dem newspaper issued to every Bath household, with the May election in mind, Mandy Rigby the cabinet member for transport is reported as saying neighbourhood parking schemes are being provided to those areas that want them.
That's Colin as well. We also had Seth as well, who raised questions about residents' parking schemes and what have you. So on that particular point.
Yeah, thank you, John. So the Lib Dems back in 2019 were elected on delivering residents' parking zones. It's all about well-being and meeting our 2030 climate change targets. So we'll take one ward, for example, where there are over 6,000 residents. There was about 200 people that took part in the survey. And Colin is spot on that the majority of people that responded didn't want the RPZ. So we looked at that data very, very carefully, and we worked out that it was 2 streets in particular that really, really didn't want the RPZ. So as a council, you have to make a logical decision. Should we not do an RPZ, which is wanted by the majority of people in the area, because 2 streets are against it? So it's a tough decision, but we are going to go ahead with it. And I'm sure you're aware, in Bristol and Bath, all RPZs that have been brought in, if we tried to remove those RPZs now, people would be in uproar. They really would be. There's always a very loud minority that jump up and down and shout, but we're doing it for the right reasons. We were elected to do it, and we will stand by those election commitments. It's what the majority of people in those areas do want, despite the very small turnout and noise that was created by the consultation. But I'm very much committed to improving those areas and people's lifestyles in that area.
Okay, Cass joins me in the studio with a...
Let me just say that democracy, okay, so next time that we go for a general election and you get a 40% turnout, does that mean that whoever loses could claim the 60% because they didn't vote? Well, they would have voted for us. So people get off their backsides, go out and say no, because it's such a small number, we're going to disregard that entirely. Real democracy, real democracy.
Thank you, Dave. Yeah, do you want to, yeah, okay. You're going to speak? All right, so we've got one in the corner, and then you can come on up front. I'll come over here. That's brilliant. Make sure you wait. Yeah, no problem.
Is there any accountability for when people or the councillors and stuff do go wrong? Because it sounds like a whole load of money that us taxpayers are throwing out there, and then they make these errors. Who's covering that? Is there anyone that's actually held to account for the, excuse my language, cock-ups?
It's a very good question. It's the point about holding people accountable.
So all of us, I mean, I personally had to purchase an electric car recently because of my business. I have to travel through Bath, so I couldn't actually do it with my old vehicle. It's a lot of money. I'm very lucky in that I was able to. Lots of people aren't going to be able to, so they're going to be stuck, unable to travel. You know, I'm reduced mobility as well. I'm asthmatic, so I appreciate, yes, pollution is a thing to worry about, but there's a whole load of things that haven't been taken into account, or the people's voices. You know, why aren't we being asked? You know, it's ridiculous. It appalls me.
Thank you very much. Where was the someone? Right, we're going to have the guys on the panel come back and say some things, and then if there was a couple of people come on, if you can, there, great. So,
I just remembered one thing, listening to you all talking, is that the council might be able to count certain things that are measurable, like traffic, but there are things that you cannot count and quantify, like levels of stress, loneliness, isolation, feelings of alienation when nobody comes to visit you anymore because they want to avoid the bottleneck, or when you feel you can't go anywhere because you're scared you're going to be stuck in traffic and you can't use insulin if you need it. You have maybe some health issues. What about the people that are so anxious and have severe panic and
worries and fears that overtake them at the thought of being stuck, not knowing when you're going to come home, not thinking maybe you're not going to find your parking place anymore. So these are things that cannot be quantifiable, cannot be counted and measured by the council, but they are very important because this is our life. We go to work every day, we worry that we might not make it on time for our kids. These are the things that unfortunately get hidden and don't get airtime. Yet the number of cars on Southlands or number of cars on the high street, we know about these numbers. I think it's important to elevate other stories too, and to give them a voice when we can.
So did someone, yeah, okay, one hit. Come here. These are going to be the last two. Then don't run off, because we're going to want to talk to people. We're going to have a bit more of an informal conversation, look at what can be done. I'm going to say a few words, but yes.
Hi, yeah, I'm concerned that everybody should know that the councils, the government, the public-private partnerships do not serve the people. They serve themselves. They serve the corporate agenda. They serve the World Economic Forum. And unless we actually realise this, they will have control. And we need to take that power back. We need to have our own assemblies of our people in each town, in each village, in each city, and actually take the power back and hold these people accountable in our own court system, because our own court system is corrupt. The police are corrupt, the courts are corrupt, Parliament is corrupt. We need to take the power back for the benefit of the people, and that's what we're going to do.
Hello there, everybody. Hi, I know there's loads of people in this room that have fallen out of love with democracy, that don't like the way the council's being run, who don't think they're accountable. Is that okay? Shall I start again? I know there's loads of people in this room who don't like, who've fallen out of love with democracy, who don't like the way the council is being run. But we know the alternative. We need to vote. We need to contact our councillors. We need to hold them to account. If they ignore your wishes, make them know that. Hold them to account. Well, just keep pressurising. That's what democracy is about. Pressurising them. I guess I'm a candidate. I won't tell you which party for. It's Labour, but I'm a Labour candidate. My name's Paul Tucker. I'm Labour candidate. Prospective Labour candidate for Walcott. Now, I really do not love our local. The way the Lib Dems treat our fiefdom. I'm very ABC, but I don't like the way the Lib Dems have treated us. And I really think we ought to just engage, keep going.
Okay. Okay. I'll say some things to you. So firstly, I've got to say that in this room is the ability to make the changes now. This is so exciting, and it's really like you're in a moment, right? You've got brilliant people in here. You've got lots of experience. You're the voice of the people. This is what this is about. It's the residents and businesses and the people of this area, and we've got councillors and MPs that are basically flagrantly ignoring, and we've heard it all on the record today. And the thing is, it's not about complaining. It's about now how are we going to change that? How are we going to take back democracy together? How are we going to free our streets? We can do it, and we can do it by being organised, by being clear, by winning hearts and minds, by doing the opposite of what they do, by engaging, by being openly and discussing, by hearing ideas that we don't like, by the way, and then being able to explain the merit of our own arguments. This week, there's two things going through the House of Lords in a second reading. One is the Public Order Bill, which is, you know, a lot of people are frustrated, understandably so, by some of the things that have been happening in Britain. But the idea that our rights to congregation should have more impositions on is a very big concern for everyone. And the other one is the Online Safety Bill. Now, I've got to say, not only with the Twitter files recently, but just some of the announcements that have come out in the last week about what has been done to journalists and others that have been spied on in the recent period should make us take grave pause. And the idea that big tech companies should be outsourced to by our government in Britain so that they get their terms and conditions to decide what's said on free speech and not what's not is really problematic. And I think the thing in the same way here, where some people want to say, and they've got free speech to say this, that we're all these things, they smear us, rather than, which could end up getting people censored. The idea of free speech and open, honest, transparent debate is really important, and we've got to keep fighting for it. And that's part of a thing nationally. And here locally, we've got an opportunity, all of you do. And, you know, don't underestimate the amount of people that are doing this around the country in different places, in Haringey and Hackney and Islington and Enfield, but in Kings Heath, in Birmingham and many other areas surrounding it, in Warrington, in Edinburgh, in Canterbury, in Cambridge, there's a really big movement of people challenging the congestion charges. In Oxford, there's so many brilliant, well-organised people, and we're seeing things like the videos that are going out, talking about the impacts, having a huge national profile. The reason a few people, and Twitter's not the real world, as we know, the reason a few people start smearing is because they don't have the arguments and they're not prepared to come and engage and discuss with us. Let's not be offset by that. Let's all demand that we take back democracy together. Let's free our streets. Digital ID is a big question. It can be of benefit in certain instances, but we've got to have privacy and non-surveillance. And the question of smart cities is one. But right now, I've got to just say, the key issue is that the public needs to be engaged in this. Council, elected representatives, MPs need to listen to the electorate. They cannot just dismiss them. We absolutely should support brilliant people who are going to stand and challenge those things, and we should support anyone, I think, should get our vote that is going to challenge these things and take a stand against them. And then we also need to insist that when we have urban plans and city plans, that what we need is at the heart of it, not what the markets say, not what some people fly somewhere else to talk about what it should look like here, but what do we need on the ground? We know what we need. We've talked about it today. Let's have confidence. Many of the people that are running things have got so used to treating us with contempt and sidelining us, if I'm really honest, we've heard it tonight, that they need a dose of reality, and the way they get that is through a thrust of democratic input from us. So we can do this together, everyone. It's been a brilliant night. I'm going to ask those of you who want to get involved, come and speak to Caroline. It's really, really important. We'll be supporting nationally with lots of press and bringing people to speak in different parts of the country, here and elsewhere. But the key work is on the ground in these areas. Let's not allow smears or those things about outsiders and all that kind of thing, the parochial view. Let's talk about the issues we need to address. Let's get the things we need done in our neighbourhoods and our communities and our streets for all of us. There are families, friends, colleagues, work neighbours and loved ones. Let's not let them treat us with contempt anymore. Let's take back democracy together and free our streets. Thank you very much.
There are 9 on the campaign, and we'd like more. There are 35 people who are on the Telegram group, and we would like more. There are 15 people on the Facebook group, and we'd like more. So please come and talk to me if you want to join and help us bring things together to the next phase when we take it to the councillors. Also, very importantly, this was all put together in 2 weeks. We do really value any donations that you can help to cover the cost of this venue tonight and all the campaign administration. There are buckets on the way out. Also on the way out are a place for you to sign up to join the campaign. And you can take these. Put them in the windows of your houses and shops and businesses. And thank you very much for all coming.
Stay around, let's meet informally, have a drink. Come and speak to Caroline if you're in the area and you want to get involved, because it's really important we get as many involved together as possible. Thank you. Someone wanted to mention that there's going to be a protest in Oxford on the 18th of February. There's also going to be a big event there on the 9th of March, Town Hall.